I'm 26M and this happened with me today. I wonder what girls go through in their daily life when they face such behavior and harassment every day. This happened to me today at 6 a.m. After my morning run. I had my friend's ATM card with me, so I thought I would return it right away. I went to my friend's house, rang the bell, and was waiting outside. There were two teenage girls and I looked at them once and then looked down. It's my habit that I cannot look into people's eyes or look at them twice, so I kept my eyes down. At 6 am the street was empty and one of the girls said, "You've lowered your head, are you that shy?" The other replied, "We just wanted his number." Then the first one said again, "If someone acts like that, they deserve a slap on the face." The second one replied, "If you don't want to give your number, at least lift your head and look." And then the first one said again, "What a world we live in now." They both walked away and I felt so disgusted. In that moment I started to truly feel what girls must go through every day and how they deal with such behavior. I didn't tell my friend anything, just returned his ATM card and went back home. People are strange and my mornings usually start with a run. Today was no different. Around 6 a.m. I had just finished my run. The streets were still quiet, the air felt cool, and there was that early morning calm where the world seems half asleep. I had my friend's ATM card with me, so I thought, why not drop it off now before the day gets busy. I reached his house, rang the doorbell, and stood outside waiting for him to come down. That's when I noticed two teenage girls walking along the empty street. Out of habit, I glanced at them once, just a quick natural look, and then immediately lowered my eyes. I've always been this way. I don't hold eye contact with strangers and I avoid looking at people twice. It's not shyness exactly, it's just my way of keeping to myself. But then I heard them talking. At first I thought they were talking to each other. Then I realized they were talking about me. One of them said, "You've got your head down, are you that shy?" The other laughed and said, "We just wanted his number." The first one continued, "People who act like that deserve a slap on the face." Then the second girl added, "If you don't want to give your number, at least lift your head and look." Finally the first girl sighed and said, "What a world we live in now." They walked away, still giggling, and I just stood there frozen. At first I didn't even know how to process it. It wasn't physical harassment, but it felt wrong. It felt like someone was poking at me just for existing quietly in my own space. I wasn't trying to engage with them, I wasn't even looking at them, and yet I became a target for their comments. And in that moment something clicked in my mind. Is this what women experience every single day? Unwanted attention, being judged for how they look or act, being spoken to as if they owe a reaction. For me it lasted less than a minute. For them it might be an everyday reality. I returned my friend's ATM card without saying a word about what happened. On the way home, the whole scene kept replaying in my mind. People often think harassment is only about physical contact, but this morning made me realize it's also about words, tone, and the way someone makes you feel unsafe or uncomfortable without even touching you. And the most shocking part, the people doing it might think it's just joking around. I went for a run expecting peace and came back with a reality check. Sometimes people's behavior is beyond comprehension. After I got home, I couldn't stop thinking about it. Every detail replayed in my mind, the way their voices sounded, the laughter, the casual cruelty of their words. I felt a mix of shame, confusion, and anger. Shame because I was just standing there unsure of how to respond. Confusion because I couldn't understand why people feel entitled to judge or comment on someone's behavior like that, and anger because I realized this is only a tiny fraction of what women face every single day. I kept asking myself, what must it feel like to be constantly watched, analyzed, and critiqued just for existing? To walk down a street in broad daylight or late at night and always be on alert for unwanted attention or harassment. To have strangers feel they can dictate how you behave, how you move, even how you look. I remembered the girl's last comment, "What a world we live in now." That sentence kept echoing in my mind. Yes, it is a strange world. A world where people are judged for being themselves, a world where someone's quietness or shyness becomes a reason for ridicule. I also thought about my own habits. I lower my eyes, I avoid confrontation, I try to remain invisible, and yet even that wasn't enough. The encounter made me realize how women can't simply stay quiet or avoid eye contact to feel safe. No matter what they do, they are constantly evaluated, commented on, and sometimes shamed. It's strange, just this small incident gave me a glimpse of an experience that is for many women constant and exhausting. And the weight of that realization stayed with me all day. I don't think I'll ever forget it, not the words themselves, but the feeling of being objectified, judged, and exposed in a moment when I didn't even want attention. It was uncomfortable, humiliating, and unnerving, yet fleeting. For millions of women, it is never fleeting, it's always there. I hope that one day people stop thinking it's harmless to comment on strangers. I hope we can create a world where women and men can simply exist without being scrutinized or harassed. Until then, I will remember this morning as a lesson in empathy, a reminder to never underestimate the struggles others face every day. Even after the girls walked away, I couldn't shake the feeling that had settled over me. It was like a heavy fog had entered my mind, making everything else seem distant. I kept replaying their words over and over. People who act like that deserve a slap on the face. If you don't want to give your number, at least lift your head and look. And that final sigh. What a world we live in now. I realized how small, insignificant, and powerless I felt in that moment. And then it hit me, the same way or worse women must feel almost every day. The constant judgment, the unwanted attention, the expectation that you must respond or react even when you don't want to. I thought about how exhausting it must be to live like that, to never truly relax or feel completely safe in your own skin. I went home and tried to distract myself with the usual morning routine: shower, breakfast, checking messages, but nothing worked. My mind kept returning to the encounter. I remembered how the street had been empty, how quiet it had seemed, and how suddenly that sense of calm had vanished because of two strangers. I could only imagine what it must feel like for women walking alone, knowing that at any moment someone might make them feel uncomfortable or unsafe. I thought about my own habits: keeping my head down, avoiding eye contact, staying quiet. For me, it's a natural way of coping, a small shield against awkwardness or conflict, but even that wasn't enough to protect me from judgment. And that's when the full weight of the realization hit me: women don't get a choice. They can't simply look down or ignore the world. The world notices, comments, and criticizes no matter what they do. I started reflecting on the countless stories I've heard, friends, family, news reports, social media posts, of harassment, street comments, and uncomfortable encounters. And suddenly it all made sense in a new personal way. I felt a deep empathy, a mix of guilt and gratitude. Guilt because I had never truly understood the daily burden women face. Gratitude because this brief experience allowed me to glimpse it, even if just for a moment. I also realized something else. People often dismiss comments or actions as just harmless jokes or teasing. But it's not harmless when it makes someone feel exposed, judged, or unsafe. Even small words can carry weight, and for someone experiencing it day after day, the weight is crushing. By the time I left my friend's house and walked back home, I felt different. I wasn't angry at the girls. They were teenagers, unaware of the larger impact of their words. I wasn't embarrassed either. I knew I hadn't done anything wrong. But I was thoughtful, contemplative, aware. The world, I realized, is much harsher for those who are constantly judged for simply existing. That morning, I learned a lesson I won't forget. I learned that even a small encounter lasting less than a minute can open your eyes to a reality you've never personally experienced. And I promised myself that from now on I would carry this awareness not as fear but as empathy, to notice, to understand, and to never underestimate the courage it takes for anyone, especially women, to navigate a world that often judges and comments on every little thing. It's strange how a 5-minute morning interaction can change your perspective so profoundly. I returned home with a sense of quiet reflection, a little more empathy in my heart, and a newfound understanding of what it truly means to feel exposed in your own world. The rest of the day I couldn't shake what happened. Every time I closed my eyes, I could hear their voices again echoing in my mind. I kept thinking about how casually they had judged me, how easily they had decided my behavior deserved criticism. And then it struck me: women face this kind of judgment constantly, not just for a moment, but repeatedly, in ways that never let up. I started thinking about all the little things I take for granted: walking down the street without fear, moving freely without being watched, choosing my own reactions. For women, these things aren't guaranteed. Every step outside can be an act of calculation. Should I avoid eye contact? Should I pretend to be on my phone? Should I speed up my pace to avoid being noticed? I realized how exhausting it must be to navigate the world constantly aware that your behavior is under scrutiny. The girls' laughter, which had seemed harmless at first, now felt like a symbol of a much larger problem. It wasn't malicious in intent, but it reminded me how easily words can make someone feel small, powerless, or unsafe. That tiny moment of discomfort I felt. It was fleeting, but for millions of women, similar moments accumulate day after day, year after year. I also reflected on how society normalizes this. People shrug it off, saying it's just teasing or she shouldn't take it personally. But it's not just teasing when someone feels constantly watched, judged, and pressured. And suddenly I understood the resilience, patience, and strength it must take for women to move through the world every day. By the time I returned home, I felt a quiet kind of gratitude. Gratitude that this experience had given me a glimpse of something I had never personally understood. It was a painful reminder, but also a lesson in empathy. I promised myself I would never forget it, that I would carry this awareness with me, and that I would be more mindful of how my own words and actions affect others. Even hours later, I kept replaying the scene. I imagined it from their perspective. I imagined it from the perspective of women who encounter judgment every day. And I felt a deep emotional shift within myself. I realized how important it is to treat everyone with respect, to withhold judgment, and to understand that even small words or actions can have lasting effects. That morning, I thought I was just returning a friend's ATM card. Instead, I came away with something far more valuable: a window into the daily challenges women face, a new awareness of the world's cruelty, and a lesson in compassion that I hope I'll never forget. Sometimes the smallest incidents leave the deepest impressions. And for me, this quiet 5-minute encounter will remain with me forever, a reminder to notice, to understand, and to empathize. Even as the sun rose higher in the sky, I couldn't shake the memory of that encounter. It was strange because for most of the day nothing else happened to me. No confrontation, no comments, no attention at all, and yet that brief 5-minute moment had left a lasting impression. I kept replaying it in my head. The street had been empty, the world quiet, and I had just been trying to do a simple, harmless thing: return a friend's ATM card. And yet I found myself judged, evaluated, and laughed at. I realized then that this is the reality for women every day in countless small moments. It's not always about physical danger or overt harassment. Sometimes it's about words, tone, and gaze, the silent ways in which someone can make you feel uncomfortable, exposed, or unsafe. That morning, I had felt it myself. I felt powerless, embarrassed, and disgusted. And I knew immediately, this is only a tiny fraction of what women endure. I thought about how many women I know who walk to school, college, work, or even just the corner shop, navigating the world under the invisible weight of judgment. Every look, every comment, every laugh or whisper from strangers can make them feel vulnerable. And no matter what they do, keep their head down, walk fast, ignore people, it's never enough to make the world leave them alone. For me, it was a fleeting discomfort. I returned home, handed my friend his ATM card, and went about my day. But for millions of women, those moments accumulate, turning into a constant background of anxiety, self-consciousness, and caution. I felt a deep empathy mixed with guilt for not having fully understood before. I also reflected on how society treats these experiences too. Often people shrug them off as harmless teasing, as something insignificant. But that's not the truth. Even small words or gestures can leave a mark. And for those who face it repeatedly, it can shape their entire perception of the world, their sense of safety, and their freedom to exist without fear. By the afternoon, I found myself thinking about it not just as an event, but as a lesson, a harsh, uncomfortable, and unforgettable lesson in empathy. I promised myself I would carry this awareness with me, to be more conscious of the words I speak, the actions I take, and the world I participate in. I understood in a way I never had before the courage it takes to live in a world where you are constantly being judged. Even now, hours later, I can feel the lingering weight of that morning. It's a weight that has opened my eyes, challenged my assumptions, and humbled me. I learned that harassment is not always physical, that judgment can come in a casual tone, a glance, a laugh. And I learned that even a short, seemingly insignificant moment can teach you empathy if you let it. That morning, I didn't just return an ATM card. I experienced a glimpse of another reality, one that millions of women live every day, and I carry that realization with me now, a quiet but powerful reminder to notice, to respect, and to never take for granted the freedom to move through the world safely without fear or judgment, because sometimes it's the smallest moments that leave the deepest marks, and the lessons they teach are the ones we never forget. By the evening, I finally sat down and let myself think quietly. That brief encounter had changed something inside me. It wasn't fear or anger, but awareness. A small window had opened into the world of women, the constant scrutiny, the judgment, the pressure to always be careful, to always respond, to always protect oneself. I realized how easy it is to dismiss these moments as trivial or harmless, but they're not. Every glance, every comment, every word carries weight. And while I had felt it for just a few minutes, for women, this is often an everyday reality. It's exhausting, unfair, and relentless. That morning reminded me of the courage, patience, and resilience it takes just to exist freely in the world. I understood in a new and personal way why empathy matters. Why we must notice, respect, and protect each other's space and dignity. I didn't tell anyone about what happened. I didn't need to. The lesson was already inside me, quiet but powerful. I returned the ATM card, walked home, and felt a subtle shift in how I viewed the world. Sometimes it takes just one small incident to teach you something enormous. Today I learned what millions of women face daily, and I hope I never forget it. The world may be strange, unfair, and sometimes cruel, but if we notice, if we empathize, and if we act with respect, maybe we can make it a little safer, a little kinder for everyone.